Hi, I'm Mark Orwoll for Highbrow Magazine, and I've got a movie review for you. I prefer not to be terrified. I dislike extravagant gore on screen. I hate seeing pets, the elderly, disabled people, and other defenseless beings face imminent demise. I never want to scream in shock in a public theater. That's why Whistle, the new supernatural horror release from IFC and Shudder, is the perfect thriller for me. There's only one concern. Whistle simply isn't very scary. For a horror movie, that's an existential problem. Don't get me wrong, there is some splendid special effects work with just enough blood to meet the minimum horror genre requirements. And as with any horror film, there are many of the tropes you would expect. An evil scourge from an ancient culture, low lighting in situations where a normal person would simply switch on the overhead lights, a brave teenager becoming a warrior against the supernatural foe, old women warning about impending doom, and, of course, frequent jump scares that quickly become repetitive. Chris Willett, played by a subdued but delightful Daphne Keene, is shipped off from Chicago to her cousin's house in some Midwestern steel town, where the smokestacks stipple the skyline and the most fun to be had is driving drunk with your buddies. According to rumor, Chris is a drug rehab alumna who killed her father. With her straight black hair, excessive eyeshadow, and tattoos, she looks the part. A goth girl from the big city gone bad, now doing enforced penance in Nowheresville, USA. But there's something wrong. She's assigned to the high school book locker that once belonged to the late Mason Raymore, a beloved varsity hoopster who has recently died under, shall we say, mysterious circumstances. The senior class cool kids give Chris a hard time about taking over their dead friend's locker. As they're chased away by Mr. Craven, the history teacher, Chris finds among the locker detritus a unique stone container holding a spooky-looking whistle. More erudite horror fans than I will recognize it as an Aztec death whistle, which apparently is a real thing. Here's the trouble. Blow that whistle, and anyone within earshot of its clamorous, cacophonic call is unlikely to make it to Act 3. Chris, as we discover, did not actually kill her father. Yet overwhelming guilt consumes her. Among her dearest possessions is Papa's collection of vintage vinyl, the songs from which provide some of the more satisfying selections from the soundtrack. In fact, God bless whomever selected Whistle's tunes. When Chris and her pal Ellie Gaines, played by Sophie Nélis, enter the spooky Raymore mansion to return Mason's locker contents to his very creepy grandma, the sound scratching out from a Victrola is the chilling St. James Infirmary by Cab Calloway and his orchestra. The 1941 version, if I'm not mistaken. Just as you can't unring a bell, you can't unhear an Aztec death whistle, presumably, because the young folks begin dropping like out-of-shape 18-year-olds at Marine Corps boot camp on a 95-degree day in August. Director Colin Hardy and screenwriter Owen Egerton have devised an amusing array of fatal factors for the cast members' final outs. And it's all because of the encocha, the whistle, which demands blood. Tense moments? Oh, sure. Perhaps the most unnerving, not to say terrifying, because Whistle never achieves such heights, involves Chris's friend Grace, played by Ali Scoveby, being chased through a hay bale maze at the annual Harvest Festival. One can't help but wonder what there is to harvest in the pollution-thick factory town. The deathly pursuit provides one of the more satisfying thrills of the entire picture. Not to be picky, but some story inconsistencies aren't explained. The star basketball player in the opening sequence destroys the encocha, yet weeks later it returns, fully intact, to his old book locker. How? An overweight bearded man with a full head of hair works late, then is discovered by his colleague the next morning, a bald, beardless, emaciated creature. Do they call the police? No, they stage a memorial service seemingly only an hour after someone has sniffed the fetid aroma of bodily corruption emanating from this dead man's darkened door. How can we believe this? After one of the characters dies, someone has spray-painted "Death Lives" on a nearby wall. Who? How? Why? None of these questions in the minds of the director and screenwriter require answers. Hey, it's supernatural horror. We can do whatever we want. Whistle is an earnest movie that buys into the accepted horror aesthetics, but rarely pushes the envelope enough to truly frighten the audience. Despite a team of capable, even laudable young actors, it fails to achieve something more than average. Date night movie? Sure thing. Perfect, in fact. Horror geeks night out? Nah, a disappointment. Whether you enjoyed the film or not, stick around for the surprising kicker in the mid-credits sequence. In the end, Whistle presents a novel concept, a unique take on the genre's cliches, but fails to achieve the next-level twists and drop-dead shocks that might have taken this, at times charming but ineffective chiller, to the next level. For Highbrow Magazine, I'm Mark Orwoll.